In today's edition of You've Got to Be Effing Kidding Me, I am going to bring you the story of Oklahoma Sooners assistant football coach Cale Gundy, who had the audacity to read what was on one of his players' iPads and be forced to resign for said offense. This will be fun. This will be nothing surprising, unfortunately. What happened with Coach Gundy is nothing new, but I feel the need to continue to point it out, to continue to rail against it, because in truth, if we don't stand up to this stuff, it will simply become accepted, if it hasn't already. But there has to be some sort of pushback, or we've completely lost. So we're going to get into his story, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on what it says about our society as a whole at the moment. But in case you haven't been here before, hi, my name is Dan. This is the Soule of Wisdom. If you have been here before, welcome back. If you haven't done so, please do subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell. I've said it in multiple videos. I will continue to say it. It is important in this time of censorship, especially as we come up on midterm elections, that we support any content creator, large or small, who wants to have an open discussion about topics. It is the discussion that they want to shut down. So if you appreciate discussion, subscribe to this channel and subscribe to every creator out there who believes in the same. We have to support each other. Okie dokie, if you are visually gifted, feel free to take a look on your screen. If you're on YouTube or Rumble podcast side, you can play along because we'll be doing a lot of reading. But this from the Daily Wire and reported in multiple places. Oklahoma football coach ousted for reading forbidden word. Cale Gundy, who played quarterback for the Sooners in the early 90s and has been a part of the coaching staff since 99, resigned Sunday after a controversy that began in the film room. He said he caught a player looking at an iPad when he was supposed to be studying game film, and when he read aloud what was on the device, he spoke the word that cost him his job. Of course, I can't say that word here, or my channel will get a strike and be ousted, but you can guess what that word most likely is, can't you? Gundy said the words displayed had nothing to do with football. One in particular was a word that I should never, under any circumstances, have uttered, was displayed on that screen. In that moment, I did not even realize what I was reading, and as soon as I did, I was horrified. Gundy seemed to accept that merely pronouncing the word or words was a career ender, even though he didn't use it as an epithet. I want to be very clear, the words I read aloud from that screen were not my words. What I said was not malicious, it was not even intentional. Still, I am mature enough to know that the word I said was shameful and hurtful, no matter my intentions. The unfortunate reality is that someone in my position can cause harm without ever meaning to do so. Okay, I'm going to hold my comment until we get through all of this. This statement from Brent Venables, the new Oklahoma head coach, as Lincoln Riley left. I think he went to one of the Cals. It doesn't matter. Anyways, he says, as painful as it has been dealing with Coach Gundy resigning from the program, it doesn't touch the experience of pain felt by a room full of young men that I am charged to protect, lead, and love. There are a few things I would like to address. Coach Gundy resigned from the program because he knows what he did was wrong. He chose to read aloud to his players, not once but multiple times, a racially charged word that is objectionable to everyone and does not reflect the attitude and values of our university or our football program. This is not acceptable, period. Coach Gundy did the right thing in resigning. He knows our goals for excellence and that coaches have special responsibilities to set an example. He also knows that while he will always be part of the OU family, that his words affected many of us and did not represent the principles of our university. Again, his resignation was the right thing to do, and we will move forward positively. Holy God. Okay. There's a possible bright light at the end of this tunnel that I'm going to read in a moment, but commentary time from your host. This is BS. This stuff is always BS. And quite honestly, if I'm being intellectually honest here, the BS starts from Coach Gundy himself. Not because he read what was on a football player's iPad. By the way, that football player was supposed to be in film study. So he was calling out his player for not paying attention. Rather than paying attention, he was going through stuff on his iPad where this unfortunate word was displayed. It's kind of like when you were in high school and you'd be passing a note or something and the teacher would grab it and then read the note aloud to the class. This kind of stuff has happened for decades, for generations. It's nothing surprising here. But the first responsibility here falls on Coach Gundy, not for reading the word, but for apologizing for reading the word. At some point, you have to stand up and say, no, you're not going to crucify me for reading something that was on somebody else's device just because it's a quote-unquote bad word for a white person to say. You have to stand up and say, no, this is not okay. You don't get to crucify me for that. He didn't call his players that word. He wasn't malicious. He read what was displayed in front of him. And quite honestly, if these are actual college students and not people just there to play football, they should have enough of a friggin' intellect to know the difference between somebody calling them this word and the coach simply reading it. Especially when it's a word that is thrown around by that community, assuming that the word that was read is the word that we all think it was. It's thrown around in rap music and in just general conversation and everything else. And you can't tell me that it's not, because we've all heard it. I grew up in a predominantly black community. That word was thrown around constantly by the black people in that community. But now we've gotten to this point where Coach just immediately genuflects and asks for forgiveness and mercy. Stupid. That's the first thing. And then this statement from the head coach where he says Coach Gundy resigned because he knows what he did was wrong. No, it wasn't, Coach. And shame on you for not standing up for your assistant coaches and saying, hey, there was nothing malicious here. We can maybe learn from it and say, well, we want to make sure that we don't use this word under any circumstances. No, by the way, that goes for you too, players. We don't want this word thrown around in the locker room. We don't want to hear it in the music. We don't want to see it displayed on anything. None of it. It's gone. Because quite honestly, shouldn't the rules apply equally to everyone? Doesn't that make sense? Isn't that how America is supposed to work? Aren't we supposed to be a nation of rule and law? Now, there is technically no law that says you can't use that word. The court of public opinion will have you, though, that's for sure. But shouldn't we be able to apply these standards equally? Instead, this coward of a coach, Coach Brent Venables, throws his assistant under the bus and says that what he did was wrong and not acceptable. And what else did he say? Or something else. Oh, yeah. Where he says he didn't agree with the pain that was felt by a room full of young men. If the room full of young men had pain over this coach using a quote-unquote racially charged word in a non-racial way, then quite honestly, that room full of athletes, testosterone-filled big guys, ultimately have zero balls. I'm just saying. I promised you the light at the end of the tunnel. Allow me to read that to you. This from Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is a player for the Cincinnati Bengals, producer-wife's favorite team, by the way. She was heartbroken when they didn't win the Super Bowl. Maybe they'll get back there again soon. But he says Coach Gundy is everything OU and any institution would want in a coach, teacher, and mentor. By the way, Joe Mixon went to OU. He is caring, thoughtful, intelligent, smart, funny, experienced, philanthropic, humble, and selfless. If not for Coach Gundy, I would not have attended OU, survived at OU, stayed at OU, and succeeded in my life after OU. I owe my education and professional career to him, and most importantly, I owe who I am as a person to him. Most importantly, Coach Gundy is not, I repeat, not a racist in any way, nor has any racist bone in his body, mind, or soul. And then he rambles on for a little bit. And then he says, I know this about Coach. If he was admonishing a student athlete for any reason, it was because he was trying to help that athlete be a better person, player, teammate, and student athlete of OU. I know that for a fact, that if I used any derogatory or inappropriate words, if he used rather, it was because they were written and not in his own thoughts. I have never seen him say, think, or utter a racist word, slang, or saying. And please keep in mind that he is in meeting rooms and locker rooms where such words are thrown around by players and in the music we listen to as often and as easily as footballs fly in the air at practice fields. Okay, so super cool by Joe Mixon, who, by the way, I believe is a black dude, to stand up and say, no, this is not okay. He did nothing wrong. I support him. Although he points out what I was saying earlier, that this word is just thrown around in that space. So if that's the case, then we have unequal application of the rules. And that's not okay either and has to be fixed. Ultimately, these things need to be stood up to. That is the bottom line. We cannot as a society function where one group of people can say one thing and then another group of people can't say that thing. It's not sustainable. It doesn't work. It further creates the division, which you could argue is what those in power are hoping for. Because if we're divided and fighting amongst ourselves, then it becomes easier for them to do what they want to do. But that's another discussion for another time. The more important thing here, in my opinion, is that we need to stand up and say no to this sort of thing. But quite honestly, if Coach Gundy himself doesn't have enough balls to say, no, I'm not going to apologize when I didn't do anything wrong and stand up for himself, then I don't know how anybody else is going to stand up for him either. It has to start with the individual. It has to start with each of us. And for the record, I am not arguing, and don't mistake this as this, that as a white person, I should be going around throwing out that word at every opportunity. No. My point is, though, is that if somebody says something and they're not being malicious about it, they're not trying to hurt somebody, then we all need to learn to have enough grace and enough understanding to just say, no harm, no foul. We need to be better. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about this? Do you think Coach Gundy did anything wrong? Do you think he should have resigned? Do you think, like I do, that he should have grown a set and stood up for himself? Give me your thoughts on this whole thing. Just do please be respectful in the comments, because this has the ability to be a little bit charged, and we don't need to have a comment section filled with hate either. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Please do like, subscribe, share if you have not already done so. And until the next time I see you, thank you for watching.